Hi friends, and welcome to Marvelous Friends, your home for all things Marvel Cinematic Universe and beyond. I'm Rhett, and earlier this week we got a new trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home. In this trailer we got a bunch of new details, which means a bunch of new theories. Today's theory is going to be Mysterio, agent of Hydra, or Loki. Roll that credit. Moments after I uploaded my video earlier this week about my review for Endgame, we got big news. A new Spider-Man trailer dropped, which gave me answers that I was asking in that exact same video. I asked a lot of questions and critiqued a lot about the time travel and the lack of repercussions from that time travel. And Mysterio delivered an answer. We found out that Mysterio is from a different world, and that world was developed from a fracture in time caused by the actions of Endgame. However, we don't really learn about what events altered these timelines, and I think that's for a reason. That's something we're going to find out in the movie, potentially. But I have a few theories about what could it be, and of course I talked about several of these little fractures in time that occurred due to events and meddling by the Avengers. For example, there's a whole group of people who thinks Captain America is a Hydra agent now, and of course Loki escapes his capture at the end of the original Avengers movie. I of course talk about a bunch more of these options and various others in detail in my last video, Avengers Endgame 5 and 5. If you want more, definitely go check out that video. Now, going into this trailer, we know very little about Spider-Man Far From Home. We got a teaser trailer way back last winter, fall sometime, but of course there was a lot of information not given intentionally because they didn't want to give away too much for what was going to happen between then, Endgame, and now when this movie is about to come out. So really all we learned was that, Spidey is back from the dusting and is on another school field trip, this time to Italy. We do have some new characters introduced with his schoolmates, and then of course we see Mysterio kind of being set up to be the bad guy, but there's also these major elemental monsters that are causing problems. And then we see Spidey with the new spider suit, a nice stealth black suit, which is pretty sweet. But that was really it. We didn't really get a lot of other information. Now, this new trailer is packed full of information because we know a lot more about what universe we're going into, so they can give us a lot more. So what we're seeing now is a lot of that kind of same information, but we get a lot more detail about Mysterio, specifically, again, him being from a different world caused by a fracture in our timeline, and that he is here to be a hero, or at least so him and Nick Fury say. Now, we don't know a lot about the world that Mysterio comes from. We can infer, though, that it's not the best, because he does mention that he really wishes there were heroes like Spider-Man where he came from. So this means that there, A, isn't a lot of superheroes, and B, that it's not a great place, and that there's potentially some serious problems going on that, he's looking for others to help him with. But yet, there's not a lot of heroes. So what are you, Mysterio? Furthermore, we can infer that basically what happened was what the Ancient One said. Because of these small changes and removing the Time Stone or Power Stone or Reality Stone from where they were supposed to be, it caused a fracture in the timeline. However, I do believe and have faith in Captain America to fulfill his mission, and he did return those stones, preventing further fractures. Which means I believe there were some that had already taken place, and that again comes from the meddling I talked about in my review of Avengers Endgame and the couple I mentioned earlier in this video. But specifically, the two that I mentioned, the Hydra agent Captain America and the escape of Loki, are the ones I believe could result in the most negative of futures where Mysterio potentially could come from. First, I'll jump into the Captain America as an agent of Hydra theory. For this to happen, of course, there's several other sequential things that need to happen before this. Luckily, severe head trauma is already checked off that list. Captain from our present knocked out Captain of our future, hitting him across the head pretty hard, but not only that, but confusing him in the process. To get this advantage, he told him that Bucky is still alive. This distracted him just before Captain America knocks him unconscious. Now, again, there's another step to this. If an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. or true agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. or another Avenger were to find him, nothing's to happen. Eventually the ploy would come out that it was all fake and that it was just Captain America taking advantage of them to get the briefcase, though the question would be raised as how he knew they were Hydra agents. This would all be negated. It wouldn't cause a big problem. However, if a Hydra agent found him, it would, because when he came dazed and confused out of his knocked out state, they could take advantage of this. Him asking about where is Bucky would then lead them into being able to use Bucky against him and get him to their side, potentially even putting him under the same treatments that Bucky has been under for years to this point and reprogramming his mind. And then, in the eventual outing of Hydra that happens in Winter Soldier, we would then see them using Captain America as an asset. He'd be a planted mole within the Avengers, being able to take them out one by one. And at this point, we would know that Iron Man has his contingency plans, those little things that he's created that would help him take down any of the Avengers if that need ever were to arise. Simply taking out Tony first and then using those, whatever they are, besides the Hulkbuster, to take out each subsequent Avenger, thus putting him at power, plus putting Hydra at power, thus creating a bad future. Now, we also know that Hydra is very scientifically forward-thinking, and many times have created some pretty impressive technology that is used within the MCU. So it'd be no stretch of the mind to think that with Hydra now in power in that world, that they would begin to develop future technologies and really going after the science exploration, potentially coming after the breaks in the timeline and figuring out how to transport, between those. Now, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. specifically, we've come across a lot of portals that allow people to transport both intentionally and unintentionally between worlds. Of course, most of these to this point have been within the same reality, but it's not a stretch then to believe that something can be developed or found that would allow them to transfer between these multiverses. Then, using the technology that they've dissected from the defeated Avengers that Captain America has provided for them, creating this very hybrid suit that we see in the trailers that's very Thor, very Iron Man-esque in design, and then using those powers to create their own superhero-esque soldiers. And of course, being a spy agency and well-versed in espionage, it would be not a stretch for them to send spies into these new worlds posing as heroes in these super suits. Hence, we have Mysterio knowing to go seek out Fury, leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., in this reality, and take advantage of it. Now, the second scenario is a lot more straightforward. Loki escapes, and that's really all we need there. After he escapes, he would then, of course, regroup and rethink his strategy. The most logical to me would be to take them out one by one, studying them, figuring out their weaknesses, taking advantage of that, and then ultimately crossing them off the list, rather than, the all heads on assault of all of them knowing what they're capable of as a team. After they're out of the way, he would then be free to rule as he so wanted. Now, we also know that he is not one to shy away from greater power, aligning to those who are stronger than him if it is advantageous to him. And in this whole exploration of this new strategy, Loki could become associated with one of these kind of powers. The one that makes the most sense to me, of course, in this scenario is Kong the Conqueror. Now, Kong the Conqueror is someone who conquers various timelines, multiverses, dimensions, what have you. And he could explain to Loki that there's these different timelines and divergent futures that are happening now due to the events of the present. And of course, being the greedy Asgardian that he is, who wants more than what he really needs or deserves, Loki would go after these Earths as well, wanting to conquer them all. This is something that is very in line with Loki as a character in the comics, so it would be something I wouldn't be surprised to see in the movies. Now, of course, we would see this be done through Mysterio, and this would also again explain Mysterio's very referential look, having very much so the motif of Avengers that we've already seen. Loki being aware of them, knowing their powers and their suits and what kind of powers they get from those suits, he could then create something for his soldier in Mysterio to send him out into the world. Using him as a front, knowing again who to look for and who to go after to sway their trust in order to be successful in his mission, kind of exploring what these different realities are like so that he knows how to approach each of them in his eventual conquest. This again would also fall right in line with Mysterio being a false hero, and I think it would make a lot of sense. What else makes this a little bit more of a stronger argument is the fact that we see that Mysterio uses a magic of sorts when he is using his abilities. Now, Loki, of course, is the god of magic and mischief, as according to the Norse mythology that we have within the MCU. And so teaching his minions magic would make a lot of sense. Also, it's important to note that Loki is very much so associated with the color in green, and we see a greenish magic being used by Mysterio. And that magic is very referential to the sorcery that we see in the MCU of Doctor Strange, Wong, and the rest of them. However, it's triangular and green and not circular and gold. Triangular being very pointy, very sharp, very much so the opposite of a round circle. And furthermore, the green color, again, associating back to Loki, which is why I do lean towards this theory a little bit more than the Hydra theory. Not only that, but we have a lot more Loki content coming to us, and we don't have a lot more Captain America content coming to us. Captain America, Steve Rogers, is out, unfortunately. So we're not going to get a lot of background, a lot of flashbacks to kind of explain this kind of theory through Mysterio. But what we do have coming to us is a whole Loki series called The Adventures of Loki, as it is titled now, to the Disney Plus platform. Now, of course, we don't know a lot about what this is going to be, but I could definitely see this being Loki exploring these multiverses and his adventures in them as he tries to navigate and figure them out, ultimately trying to conquer them all. This could also give us some backstory into Mysterio, which I would really like to see. We see a lot of times that these villains get brought in for a single movie, and then kind of that's it. Thanos and Loki being the major exceptions to that. And of course, we had a few more references in these big in-game movies to kind of refer back to some of our previous villains. But, that doesn't happen a lot for us. So having more well-rounded villains is something I would really like to have moving forward. And that kind of idea of using this series to explain this process of Loki would allow for this with Mysterio. I also think it would be interesting to kind of see Loki being responsible for something that we've been wanting from a Spider movie for so long, and that is the Sinister Six. We have been wanting it as fans for so long. They've teased it to us so many times, and I think we are due for a Sinister Six team-up against Spider-Man. Mysterio is very typically a part of the Sinister Six, so it would be very on brand to have him as a part of it. And I could see the Sinister Six basically making up like the generals of Loki's army in this alternate reality. Now, I of course would like to see some traditional members being a part of that, but I could also see him adding in a few others to make it a little bit more interesting and something new for the MCU. These could be villains that are similar or have qualities other Sinister Six members have, but are typically from other franchises within Marvel Comics, or just different ones altogether that would kind of fit well within the mix. I think this would be a really cool idea, and something that I could definitely see being plausible if we go down this rabbit hole of a theory. Now, of course, I know it is a stretch, and it is a lot to take from basically 2 lines of dialogue from a trailer. But I think it's very possible. But I would like to hear your thoughts. Which of these theories do you like more? Which one do you think is more realistic? Are you with me being Team Loki, or you think more maybe of a Hydra agent option? Or am I just completely crazy and neither of these are possible and I'm just pulling stuff out of you-know-where? Tell me in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your theories of what the motives behind Mysterio is. Of course, there's much more theories to talk about when it comes to this trailer. There's a lot of content that we got in a very short little package, so I will be posting more videos coming forward with that content, so definitely subscribe and set the alerts to get that kind of stuff. Of course, before we go, definitely like this video if you liked my ideas. I hope you all have a marvelous day, and I love you all 3,000. Bye, friend!